Today, we're going to be talking about The Marriage of Figaro by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The story takes place near Seville, Spain in the late 18th century, so it probably looked a little more like this. And you might need a Venn diagram to keep up with all the love triangles and scheming, so hold on to your hats. Now, Figaro and Susanna are getting married, but Count Almaviva wants to get with Susanna, but he's already married to the Countess Rosina. And Cherubino wants to be with Rosina, but he also wants to be with Barberina. And all this time, Figaro was supposed to marry Marcellina, who turns out to actually be his mother. That was a lot of names, so let's talk a little bit more about the characters. There's Count Almaviva, a nobleman who's kind of a sleazeball. He regrets revoking the law allowing nobility to take part in the honeymoons of their servants because he's interested in Susanna. He spends the whole opera trying to prevent Figaro and Susanna's marriage and gets what's coming to him when his wife catches him in the act. His wife is Countess Rosina, who is upset that her marriage is on the rocks because of her husband's scheming. She loves her husband, but conspires with Susanna and Figaro to trick him into stopping his advances on Susanna. Now, Figaro is the Count's valet, our protagonist and a former barber. He helped the Count get together with the Countess through his wits and is set to marry Susanna. But complications from his past throw a wrench into things after he finds out that the Count is making advances on his fiancée, Susanna. Susanna is the Countess's maid, our clever heroine and Figaro's fiancée. She schemes to humble the Count and to avoid his advances. On the other hand, there's Cherubino, Almaviva's page, traditionally a pants role, which is where a female mezzo-soprano plays a young boy character. He's a flirt who has a crush on the Countess, and every other woman in sight, including Barberina. Now, Barberina is Antonio's daughter. She winds up an unwitting piece of the plot to humble the Count and isn't quite ready to be a part of all the romancing and plotting. Her father, Antonio, is the Count's tipsy gardener, Barberina's father, and Susanna's uncle. There's Dr. Bartolo, a physician, Figaro's former nemesis. He has come to collect on Figaro's debt to him, either by money or marriage to his housekeeper. Marcellina, who is Bartolo's housekeeper. She was originally promised to be Figaro's wife and is now trying to disrupt Figaro's marriage to Susanna. This all goes out the window when we find out that she's actually Figaro's mom. There's Don Basilio, the music master who constantly intervenes and spreads gossip and generally just causes more problems. There's Don Curzio, a lawyer hired to add legal authority to Marcellina's contract with Figaro. Plus, there's also a ton of villagers, peasants, servants, and wedding guests that are played by the chorus in the show. Now onto the actual story. One big day of madness. Figaro and Susanna are one happy couple, and they are about to get married. Count Almaviva and the Countess Rosina are already married, but not very happy about it. Our story opens with Figaro, a happy-go-lucky guy with a beautiful bride-to-be, planning the layout of their new apartment. Unfortunately, Susanna has attracted way more attention from the Count than is proper, and he is after her in a big way. Figaro has to figure out a way to protect Susanna, get hitched, and avoid the Count. Not easy, since he works for the Count as his valet. Susanna is a lady's maid to the Countess Rosina. Neither woman is happy about the Count's wandering eye. Figaro first brings in the village girls to thank the Count for being such an understanding employer and setting such a good example of married life. It sets the Count's plans back a little, but he rallies and starts his advances again. Figaro tries to hurry the wedding along, but things keep getting in the way. An old enemy, Dr. Bartolo, shows up wanting to take some revenge for the way Figaro had stolen Rosina away from him under his nose to marry her to the Count. But that's another opera. He brings Marcellina, an older woman who claims Figaro was supposed to marry her if he couldn't pay a debt. And he can't pay the debt. The Count supports the claims of Marcellina, and Figaro is about to be married off to the wrong girl when, who would expect it, he discovers that she is actually his long-lost mother. Reunited with his parents, Figaro is free to marry Susanna. But the Count is not giving up that easily. Susanna and the Countess have meanwhile hatched a plot to trap the Count. They enlist the aid of Cherubino by dressing him as a girl. But the Count shows up and Cherubino has to lock himself in a closet and then jump out of a window in order to escape. Susanna and Rosina then decide to swap outfits and pose as each other. They send a note inviting the Count to meet Susanna in the garden. He falls for it, but they fail to clue in Figaro, who also shows up in the garden and is totally confused as to why Susanna, who is really the Countess, is way too attentive to the Count. There's lots of comic misunderstanding before the trap is finally sprung. In the end, the Count sees the error of his ways and asks the Countess to forgive him. Figaro and Susanna clear the last hurdle, and the wedding is finally on. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to seeing you soon at the opera.